Good evening. I'd like to call a meeting to order. This is the May 24th, 2023 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We have a lengthy order of business due to our not meeting for a couple of weeks, a couple of times here. We start with continued business. We have an enforcement order out to the City of Lowell for the land adjacent to 52 Lawrence Drive. And this is a incident where trees were cut back along the bank of the Merrimack River. We've had discussion of this for a couple of times already, and I believe this is back on here because we're hoping someone from DPW rather was going to come
and or the arborist.
Is it what?
And or the arborist.
Oh, the arborist. We did hear from by mail from the arborist, and he did give quite a lengthy report. Is there anyone here to represent the City of Lowell for 52 Lawrence Drive? I know they're not on Zoom tonight.
I think last meeting, if I remember correctly, we asked for some information about what we can do here to get them to answer their phone. Any updates?
We've notified them. They're aware of the meeting tonight. I'm not sure why they couldn't be here. I'm not sure what steps we can take.
We can't make a decision on this unless we get the arborist or DPW in front of us to answer some questions. If they're not at the next meeting, I'm going to be asking what the law department can do to get them to sit here in front of us. This is ridiculous. And I can only imagine that email is going to get answered about as well as this one. But if I have to go down to Paul's office and knock on his own door myself about this, then I will. So put that in the record.
What's your pleasure with this? Shall we continue till our next scheduled meeting?
I agree with Brad. I think we should, well, I'll make a motion to continue to the next meeting, and I think this should be our last time that we continue it.
Any other opinions?
No, I think that's about where we're at with this as well. I agree.
Okay.
Second to our next meeting is 14th, I think.
June 14th?
Yeah.
June 14th. Okay, continue to June 14th. We have the motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, we have a request for determination of applicability that we've had for a couple of meetings now from the Collegiate Charter School of Lowell. Address is 1857 Middlesex Street, and the project is removing the existing grass field and installing a turf field on their playing field. Welcome.
Can I stand at the podium?
Yes, speak into the, identify yourself, please.
My name is Bree Sullivan with Gale Associates, and I'm here on behalf of the Collegiate Charter School of Lowell. So the meeting has been continued a few times due to advertising requirements. So, but we're finally here. Thank you. So the project is, I trust you had a chance to review the plans that were submitted. Basically, so the school, as you know, is located on the south side of where the Rourke Bridge crosses the Merrimack River. The resource areas in question are the Merrimack River with a 25-foot riverfront zone, and there is a existing wetland on the property that was delineated as part of the development of the property. That resource area, if you're facing north, is to the left of the driveway when you drive into the school. So the field in question is on the right of the driveway as you drive into the school. It's where the existing grass field is now, mostly grass. The proposal is to replace that field in its entirety with a synthetic turf field and a new security fence around the outside, and part of the project includes alternates for athletic lighting, as well as a scoreboard. So the synthetic turf field construction basically consists of removal and disposal of the existing topsoil to a depth of about 13 to 16 inches, depending on the profile. Installation of perimeter safety curbing that the turf is attached to. That will also have the fence in the curb. And then placement of 10 inches of crushed stone over flat panel under drains. The base stone voids provide a storage area for the stormwater that falls on the field. The field is like pervious pavement. And installation of a turf carpet and infill system with an overall thickness of approximately 2.5 inches. This field will receive the rainwater. It's designed to stage the rainwater in the field and infiltrate into the subsoil. In cases where we have stormwater events that exceed approximately somewhere between the 50 and 100-year storm, there may be some overflow, which will discharge to the existing stormwater system on the site. The storms analyzed, we did not have an increase in flow, and as you might imagine, there's quite a bit of increased infiltration as a result of this system. The between the field and the river is a rail line. We're not going anywhere near that. It's property of Mass DOT, Railroad Division. We're not going anywhere near that. The right-of-way has a fence along it. I think we're probably going to be approximately between 10 and 15 feet off of that right-of-way line, as well as any changes to the driveway. We're not doing any of that as well. It's all going to be confined within the existing footprint of the field, of the grassed area. The proposed activity is approximately 85 feet from the wetland on site, from the vegetated wetland on site, the BBW, which is across that driveway. So I'll entertain any questions if you have any about the project.
Have you investigated the water table in that area? How far?
So we had geotechnical borings done, and I don't have those in front of me, but we did a geotechnical investigation for the athletic lighting, and that included test pits in the field. And so that information I can provide to the commission if you need that.
Do you have any recollection of?
I don't. I know it's not an issue with our system. I want to say it's 4 or 5 feet. It's fill in that area because that actually used to be part of a factory. They demolished that part of the factory and they backfilled in that area. But my recollection, it's about 4 or 5 feet.
That's amazing, with the wetland right there, too. Anyone have questions?
I checked the website and all I saw was comments. Do we have any plans? Did you submit plans? Oh, there. Thank you.
Did you decide to go with the turf, or is the turf being chosen just for maintenance? Because it's a lot easier to maintain turf instead of doing like a new natural grass field, or?
Could you repeat that, please?
Did you choose the turf for maintenance reasons, or instead of like going for a natural grass, or, you know, that is an alternative?
So as engineers, we don't typically choose the route, but the school did approach Gale Associates and ask us to design we applied to an RFP and it was for a synthetic turf field. So it was their choice.
What's going to be done with the soil that's removed?
So that soil will have to go off-site. They don't have any space to keep it on-site. As I said, it's the top layer. The The school told us that most of that soil had been imported so that they could grow grass at that location, and they've had not so great success growing grass on that field, so.
Do you anticipate any stockpiling of that soil while the project is underway?
We don't. It actually has to be taken off-site because there's no room for it on the site.
What's the lifespan of turf like that?
So synthetic turf fields can last anywhere between 10 and 15 years, depending on the maintenance and the level of usage. At that time, they typically just remove the turf and replace it. Everything else stays in place. The stone stays in place. It's regraded a little bit. And then they put a new, it's like changing a carpet in your house, because essentially the turf is a carpet. We refer to it as carpet.
Are there any noxious substances that would be washing off of that during its lifespan?
So there isn't. So this is a subject of debate with synthetic turf fields. There are two components of the turf field that has gotten a bit of undeserved concern or focus from some people. The crumb rubber that's used in the field as infill is ground up car tires. It's probably one of the most studied infills that you can get. There's a lot of alternative infills. The crumb rubber is heavily studied by the EPA. There's actually a two-part multi-agency study that they did on it to really kind of look at what the crumb rubber is made of. And all of that information is available at the EPA website online. There was some heavy metal at the beginning of the installation, but what they started to do is they started to pre-wash the crumb rubber before it gets to the site, and that kind of did away with that first flush of heavy metals right out of the manufacturing process or right out of the crushing operation. And then the synthetic turf has undergone rigorous testing. Generally, most manufacturers will provide a statement that the synthetic turf does not contain PFAS of concern, because that's become obviously a rising concern in our ecosystem, is the persistent chemicals. Any PFAS that's in the turf is locked in the matrix, just like the plastics that they use for medical devices. That's what we're being told by toxicologists. I'm an engineer, I'm not a toxicologist. I'm just relaying the information.
It's not likely that anyone will have some kind of an adverse effect by being close to this stuff?
Can you repeat that, please?
Any adverse health effects from playing on that field or being near that field?
So again, that's been pretty well studied. There have been a lot of studies that have come out, and they've really shown that there's no connection between any of these claims and any of these reported incidences of this.
I would have to concur with that. Just in my line of work, I've spent a lot of time looking at regular grass fields versus synthetic turf fields. And, you know, when you start comparing the amount of fertilizer that needs to be put down on regular grass and kids' contact with that, and that fertilizer leaching into the ground and into various waterways, the amount of gasoline needed to cut the grass on a regular basis, and so on and so forth. I agree. Studies and research that I've looked at, if anything, it's a wash from an environmental point of view between synthetic and natural grass.
I did learn an interesting tidbit in the last 2 weeks. So because PFAS is persistent, what they're finding is it's turning up in natural fertilizer because it's in the ecosystem. It persists through, for instance, if you ingest PFAS, it persists, gets into the waste stream, and then when they make fertilizer, which is natural fertilizer, you are actually applying PFAS on a grass field because of that persistence of that chemical. So I thought that was really interesting. I learned that in the last 2 weeks, actually.
I have a question about the rubber pellets. So I understand they have to be reapplied, kind of groomed through every so often to keep the turf able to be used. Where would they be storing it? Because I go to Chelmsford High's track, and they had a bunch of it just sitting kind of off on the track, and I'm sure they were gonna like groom it through at some point. But if there was a water event, high level water, maybe that would get taken away, and would probably want to avoid that.
So if it's on the track and there's a flashy storm that's possible. It can wash some of that away. Crumb rubber is heavier than water, so it sinks. So it won't float. So for instance, if you get this flashy storm and the field kind of backs up, it happens on occasion, especially in Florida. We have an office in Florida, and we do a lot of work down there. It happens sometimes. However, at this field, everything's going to flow into the field, and it kind of acts as this barrier. So the carpet binder on the bottom is punched with holes, and so it won't get through the crumb rubber and into the drainage system.
So I guess what I'm trying to ask is none of that crumb rubber will be stored on site other than in its application.
So the spare crumb rubber, yes, and I apologize, that's what you did ask. The spare crumb rubber comes in super sacks, so a 2,000-pound bag, essentially.
Okay.
And it's not supposed to be stored outside because you don't want it to get wet and sort of sit in there. It should be stored inside.
Okay.
And that's the requirement of the manufacturer, really, to store it in a cool, dry place, right? Until it's applied. And typically, it would only be applied when the field is groomed, so it shouldn't be left in a pile on the side for any amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion on this particular application?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant this a -3 designation.
Motion made for -3, meaning that the resource is of value, but this particular project won't adversely affect it. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Do we have any desire to note the manufacturer's comments due to its proximity to the river here in a condition?
For the storage, you're thinking?
Yeah, just to write it down one more
Yeah,
time.
we'll put an additional requirement just to make sure that if they have the extra, rubber pieces on site, that they're stored in, they have a storage place inside and not outside.
Okay, I'll make a note.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes, and good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
We have a request for another determination of applicability from David Hawk and Linda Ham. The address is 116 West Street, and this is a request to cut down trees within the 100-foot buffer of a wetland. Is there someone here to represent the applicant? Have you heard lately from these? I know this was on our agenda 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, I have not heard from the applicant since they sent in their response to the comments.
I don't know if anyone's interested in discussing this without the applicant here. I did look at the property, and I felt that probably a discussion would be a good idea with the applicant. There are definitely trees there that should come down, in my opinion. They're in very poor condition and perhaps dangerous as well. I'd prefer to have the applicant here so that there's no, no question about which trees we're concerned with. There are quite a few other trees there, and there is a flowing stream just nearby, so. You have a motion to continue this to our next regular meeting of June 14th?
I'll make a motion to continue this to the June 14th meeting.
Motion made, seconded.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Could we please get in touch with them, Dylan, and make sure they understand they need to come to the meeting so we can discuss it?
Yep.
Thank you. Our next item is an amended notice of intent from the Greener Group. The address is 123 Bolt Street. We issued an order of condition on this for a couple of construction projects and changes on the property. The DEP wanted some more changes included, and now they are back. Hello.
Good evening, Attorney Catherine Flood, Flood Law Office. I'm here on behalf of Pineapple Realty, the owner of property located at 123 Bolt Street. We appeared before the board on January 4th, 2023, regarding a notice of intent and approval to construct a new garage, relocate the salt storage building, and make improvements to the access area in the parking. All work to be done within 100 feet of the wetlands. The board approved our notice of intent. After we were approved by the board, the DEP filed a notice of appeal. We were able to meet on the site with the DEP, file an operation and maintenance report, and modify the plan by including a roof drain and infiltration chambers. We are here tonight at the request of the DEP to request an amended notice of intent. Matt Hammer is with me today if you have any questions. I believe all of the material that was modified was submitted with our application.
So I know, I think one of the items was an operation and maintenance plan
Yes.
that they wanted included, and the other had to do with stormwater. Could you go over what the two, I think there were only two changes.
Good evening. For the record, Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering, 10 George Street, Lowell, Mass. So when the DEP filed their appeal, we met out at site, and they wanted us to update the operation maintenance that should have been on file for the original filing for the stormwater management system on site. And we have done that. It's in the stormwater report under a separate section called operation and maintenance. And essentially that operation and maintenance takes into account all the drainage within the entire facility and provides a maintenance schedule for the maintenance of those drainage systems this point forward. Additionally, while we were doing that, we wanted to ensure that this system could handle the runoff. When the original analysis was done on the site, there was a CN value of 85 done on the site for the gravel component of the site, which should have been a 98, which is essentially an impervious surface, is what the drainage is required. So in doing that, we're putting this roof drain from the garage through some infiltration here and then putting it into the system that was there before. So there'll be no changes necessarily other than that to the plan from what the commission previously approved. We submitted that information. We did a updated stormwater report, submitted all those items back to the Department of Environmental Protection. They approved those changes, and then instead of issuing a superseding order for the project, they recommended that we come back before the commission and do the amended notice of intent.
So are you expecting the same wording that we have received in your documents as to be added to this order of conditions that you already have, the amended part?
Yes.
In other words, is the wording the way it should be according to what you discussed with DEP?
So what you would need to do is, in the conditions of the amended order, include reference to the stormwater report as well as the revised plan that we've now submitted to the commission, and we also submitted an entire package to DEP as well. So those two items would need to be added to the order.
Okay. Questions? I think this has been pretty well studied all the way around. Obviously, this is probably an improvement on what we approved the first time. And if the stormwater report and the revised plan were acceptable to DEP, I'm inclined to just add that as part of the amended wording on the so what I have seen is that we have the wording amended order of conditions on the top. Everything stays the way it was, and then this would be added. Am I correct on that?
Actually, a new order of conditions will need to be
A new
prepared.
order of
Yep.
conditions.
And I'll review that draft with Dylan before that gets finalized, because that amended order would then reference the revised plan date on that, as well as include the additional items that were in the actual revised form that we've provided. So we'll make sure that that gets filed completely with DPD before that then would get recorded.
Okay, Dylan, you understanding what they need here on the,
Yep.
I don't have any problem with issuing this personally, but I just want to make sure that it comes out the way that it's expected to.
It's not, usually the superseding order is issued and we don't go through this amended process, so this might be a first
Yeah,
time.
I've seen superseding, but I've only seen a couple of amended, and it looks kind of like people patch things together. That's probably the old days, though.
Well, I don't know if they're short-staffed, they didn't want to do the paperwork with the
So the reference to the fact that it's amended would be where? Somewhere in the conditions, or would it be prominently displayed somewhere, or?
So the new order of conditions is going to reference an amended notice of intent filing that we filed to the commission in Mass DEP.
And it would be the date that would tell people that that's the one that's now?
Correct.
Do we
Yep.
have to rescind the old one, or is?
The recording will supersede that prior order of conditions by a more recent recording number with another order of conditions, so it would
You know
supersede
it's
it by
the late,
recording.
it's the later one.
Yep.
So do we have to close out the earlier one, or?
Nope. No, because then you would need to be issued a new DEP file number.
Okay,
I'll give it a shot.
so it's the same file number then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this amended notice of intent with any special conditions that were previously applied to the original notice of intent and the standard Lowell's standard order of conditions. Additionally, we should add in another condition that states that the plan dated, the most recent revised plan dated XX for purpose of filling in during the conversations in the future with you and Matt, Dylan. February 21st. 23, thank you. And also including the stormwater report as updated with the O&M plan.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I believe it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. So now that that's amended, will they have to come back?
They'll have to close out their permit. They'll be looking for a COC, the same COC that
So they'll be coming back at some point.
yeah, you always have to.
So the
you close out
old
your
one-
NOI with a certificate. It was recorded because that's how it got to DEP, I think,
Yeah.
but now we have it amended in
No, everything goes to DEP anyway.
the, yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have another amended notice of intent that's come back from DEP. The project location is 105 Martin Street. The resource was 100-year floodplain, and we issued an order, and DEP wanted a few changes to this particular order. It looks like mostly in the compensation on the site and how it's pictured on the plan. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Paul Campbell, Chess Engineering, 126 John Street here in Lowell. I'm here representing the applicant, Bill Renaud. And so just a recap of this project. So this is a single-family home being built on Martin Street. The resource area is a 100-year flood zone, and we're proposing the home within the flood zone, but compensating for the displaced flood elsewhere on the site. So in December, you guys approved the original plan, and in January, DEP filed their notice there. So in January, we met with DEP, and long story short, what they were requiring was basically just a chart showing at each elevation of the flood what was being displaced by the house and what was being compensated on site. The original plan just had the total volume of water that's being displaced and compensated for. They wanted a chart kind of breaking it down for every elevation. So we provided this plan, this revised plan. It's still the same compensation area, more or less. And we sent it to DEP in January, and by email, they approved this plan. So just like the previous applicant, they recommended that we file here again for an amended order rather than issue a superseding order of conditions. So we're here asking for a new order, an amended order that references this plan, but everything's pretty much the same as previous, except just some more detailed information on the flood compensation. So with that, I'll take any questions.
So there's no additional compensation provided there. It's basically the same amount, but it's displayed differently.
Yeah, it's basically the same. So just a recap of what we're talking about with the flood. We're we're about sitting in 5 inches of floodwater in the 100-year storm. So typically, DEP sees plans where, it's several feet of flood. So they usually see a chart here that's like elevation 100, 101, 102, blah, blah, blah. But we're down to just 5 inches. So when you start to break down a topographic plan down to inches, things get a little wonky when they see it on the chart. So just to avoid any problems, we provided some compensation even lower than what we had previously, but it's still more or less the same. If you walk the site, which we did with Dylan, it's really flat. Like, you would have a hard time even kind of visualizing where the flood is and where the elevations are. So yeah, DP didn't seem too overly concerned. They just wanted to have a chart. That's basically it. So, and they also had, we have a deck that's being built and supported by 3 piers, which are really small piers, but they wanted that volume also calculated and compensated for, which is negligible in the original plan. And it still is, but I just calculated it out and showed it on the chart. So that's really the only difference. But yeah, it's more or less the same compensation.
Okay, so I think, are there questions? If not, I think we could entertain a motion to issue. You did a nice job on the last one. Let's do this one.
Make a motion to approve this amended notice of intent with the same standard City of Lowell order conditions and any special conditions that were attached to the previous filing, with a note as a condition that we have received and approved the revised plan dated.
The last revision date is has a typo. It's 2/10/22. It says actually 23. Early in the year, I was still doing 22.
10/23.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Next, we have an enforcement order from a site at 300 Pawtucket Boulevard, which is, I believe, state land, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, removing trees without coming before us within the 100-foot buffer of the Merrimack River. Is there anyone here to discuss this? I believe we received a reply from someone at the DCR, and the reply seemed to indicate that they thought this was legitimately done, and that the trees were dangerous or dead, and that they had no further plans for this site. Have any discussion of this on the board?
I think regardless of it being necessary, they still need to come before us in the future. So if there's any way, Dylan, that we could send them a message making it clear that anytime they're doing anything within 100 feet of the wetland, they have to come before the board first and make sure, even if they're going to do it right away, we could make an emergency to allow them to do it, but they still need to come before us.
We can do that.
That's a good point, Kevin. Would we like to send them an official letter to that effect, or just have Dylan contact?
If Dylan sends it over, I think That would be good.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns? So I believe have we ratified this, Dylan? Do you know?
No, this is the first that's been on the agenda.
So I think we can close this out. If it wasn't ratified, we've decided on a solution for the moment.
So we're looking to rescind the enforcement order?
Rescind what do you call it when you issue it, Dylan? A temporary before it's ratified?
I'm not sure what it's called, but it hasn't been ratified, so you could not ratify the enforcement order, or you could both ratify it and rescind it in two separate motions.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The motion was never ratified, so either you could vote to not ratify it, or you could ratify it in one motion and rescind it in the following motion.
I'd like to make a motion to ratify with the intention of officially sending a letter that the process was not followed here and should be followed differently in the future.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to ratify the enforcement order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And would we now like to rescind the order?
Now I'll make a motion to rescind the enforcement order.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to now rescind the order, now that we've decided on a solution for the moment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on, we have a request for determination of applicability sent to us by Jennifer Williams of 72 Heritage Drive. They're seeking to reconstruct a deck within the 100-foot buffer of a protected wetland. Is this a wetland or the river?
There's a little, like, waterway, wetland that comes down the side of my property.
Okay,
The river's further back,
right.
100 feet, yeah.
Okay, so tell us about your project, please.
So I bought the house in I bought the house in October. We moved in and I did some reconstruction, some work. We moved in February. And the deck that was existing, which is the same size as the one I'm rebuilding, was unstable and needed to be taken down. So I'm just looking to reconstruct the same size 16 by 20 foot deck on the back of the house.
Is the construction the same, or have you changed the pilings or something?
The pilings are gone, so I think we'll have to put new ones in. Is that what you're asking, if they're, yeah?
Questions?
So like the concrete that goes into the ground to hold it up?
Some of them are pulled out. There's like wood, we have like wood over it right now, so I haven't really looked to see if they're all pulled out, but I think they're gonna have to pour new ones because they're gonna have to pull out the old ones and pour new ones.
So I think all that we ask is that it would be the same, that you wouldn't be pouring any more square footage
Okay.
than was already there.
Okay,
Try and keep it the same dimensions.
so like do you mean the deck itself?
The
or-
deck and especially the concrete
Okay.
that's poured.
So the depth really is what you're talking,
I don't know that we can mandate that. That's building code stuff. The intention is to keep the soil out of the wetland. Any loose soil when you're digging it up.
okay,
So when you install these, make sure it's not going to rain before you get them, backfilled. You
okay,
should be able to dig, pour, and backfill all on the same day.
okay,
And the goal here is just to restabilize the soil as quickly as possible and not leaving a stockpile.
okay,
If there is extra that you can't get back into the hole, you can either move it outside of the 100-foot buffer zone or take it away from the site.
okay.
It shouldn't be much. We're not
No, I
talking
don't-
about a
I
lot
think
of dirt
I
here.
think that there may be 8, whatever.
Footings.
like- Footings, yeah.
So it doesn't matter the size of the footings?
We can't mandate it. It's all based on building code. It's probably going to be a 10 or 12 inch and 3.5 feet deep.
Yeah, that's what it looks like now.
Let's say, and if it was older, it's probably gonna be more,
Yeah.
based, just because it's an older deck, so this new deck will probably be more, just because codes change.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if the deck size doesn't change, then
Right.
just, the goal is to keep the soil out of the wetland.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. I just have a question. If it's approved, what do I need to get paperwork or anything from, like, is there any step after this?
We'll have to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Okay.
Are there any more questions about the deck? We have a motion now to, can we have a motion for this particular thing?
We're looking for a -3 determination. I'll make a motion for a -3 determination on the RDA.
Second?
I'll second.
If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now it's approved,
Okay.
and you will get some paperwork to that effect.
Yes, staff will give you what's called a determination of applicability, which you'll include in your building permit application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
The other business that we have left here are the minutes of the April 12th, 2023 meeting. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Motion made,
I'll second.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Is there any other business that didn't make it onto the agenda, Dylan?
Nothing from us. Nope.
Not tonight? Okay.
It's been a slow day at the office for a month.
You don't know what other business there is. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you and good night.